Good afternoon and welcome to our Saturday Sports Special, the weekend edition of TalkSports, where we chat with the movers and shakers of sports, the sportsmen, the sportswomen, administrators, both present and past. Today, we have a special guest, a guest who will not only bring context to our continued discussion on sports development in the Caribbean, but also because of his experience of many years of service, both public and private, in the Caribbean community or CARICOM. Well, I welcome today on our program the president of Cricket West Indies, Richard Ricky Skerritt, to our program. Well, he joins us live from sunny and beautiful, and at times I will say, from where I'm actually broadcasting from, have to be a very jealous. Same kits, as I say. Good afternoon to Mr. Skerritt. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Michael. A pleasure to be with you. And,
Yes.
let me say, guys like you who live and have to go through the cold, because you're Caribbean and your heart is always warm and your spirit is always lively, I know that you handle it well. Of course, that's why I'm not living there.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you for joining us. And as you may have heard, folks, and read over the past few weeks, Mr. Skerritt is actually seeking re-election for a second term when the Cricket West Indies, when the board meets on 2 Sundays from now. That's March 28th. Well, he has already received firm support from the cricket boards of Trinidad and Tobago and the Leeward Islands, and hopefully both Jamaica and Windward Islands, the cricket boards, they have already thrown some level of support in his direction. But we want to spend some time on this program on reflecting on Skerritt's administration's first term in office, a term that probably is characterized with challenges, including, we cannot forget that, the global pandemic. So he will speak about how his administration was able to, maneuver and at least accomplish some of their plans in the first term. No doubt there were challenges and he will speak on it. But the first question to which could set the stage for, I think, is the discussion is, why, Mr. Skerritt, why you and Vice President Kisho Shalom have announced a bid to seek a second term at the hand of West Indies cricket?
Well, first of all, I understand you have a good viewership in Grenada, and I want to take this opportunity, forgive me for jumping the gun here, and saying a special hello to Dr. Rudy Webster, who hasn't been well recently, and I hope he knows how much we have been praying and hoping for his speedy recovery. Rudy is one of the brightest cricket brains in the Caribbean and has been something of a mentor to Kisho and myself from time to time. I just want to wish him all the best, he and his family all the best. But to get back to your point, Kisho and myself came into Cricket West Indies leadership 2 years ago with a 10-point plan. We have made progress on every one of those points, but there are only about 4 of them that we feel that we have gotten into a state of sort of continuity, of sustainability. The other 6 still need a lot of our attention. Not that we expected to achieve all 10 to completion in 2 years, but the pandemic, as you said, did cut back on some resourcefulness and some affected our ability to get as much momentum as we wanted on all fronts. So we have reshaped our 10-point plan to be the Cricket First plus 10-point plan, because we have stuck in a couple of little other areas that we want to get done in the second term that we didn't have at all in any focus on our first term. So we are continuing, we're seeking support to continue, because We think we've done a good first term, and we know that one good term deserves another. So we believe that with the momentum and the progress that we have so far achieved, that we would be able to take it much further and deeper into outcomes that we need to move West Indies cricket onto a more sustainable basis.
And, speaking about, the challenges that you would have faced during this first term, and, what a time for this global pandemic, when probably for most people, West Indies cricket was for many, a turning point, What would you summarize as some of the challenges your administration faced during this first term?
Well, the first thing we faced was a sense of misalignment at the executive level. It didn't take me more than a few days to figure out that we just had some massive administrative problems right within our own organization. We had a chief operations officer who reported directly to the president, and we had a CEO who seemed to report to both the president and the chief operations officer. So technically you had two CEOs in the organization. Now, how that came about, one can only speculate. And there was no sort of united front in the leadership, in the executive leadership of the organization, and there was just a lot of issues that were surfacing. Issues, unfortunately, related to procurement, related to especially to cash flow and cash management, and the priorities seemed completely confused and upside down. And so it forced me to get into a sort of executive review of our financial system immediately. And so we hired a company called PKF, Global Associates, and asked them to do a quick review for us, and to end up basically doing a business situation assessment, because there were things jumping out at us which we didn't understand and which were suspicious. That report made 28 recommendations, and so we've been very busy fine-tuning our financial management, and we've been overseeing, in effect, a financial turnaround of the organization. And especially in terms of our debt management. The organization was very heavily in debt. It still is reasonably heavily in debt, but we have made a lot of progress. That was an area which I didn't expect. I didn't expect that we would be spending so much time on matters of financial management. I was expecting to spend a lot of time on cricket management. And we have made a lot of progress on cricket management. But, once the pandemic came along, we couldn't play any cricket. For several months, we literally could not play any cricket. The first cricket that we played was overseas, our obligations. And to bring a team together, prepare it, to take it overseas was virtually impossible. And that has been the nature of the game. One of the things we did was we put together a financial strategy advisory committee made up of people of financial expertise inside and outside the board. And we said, take a look at our situation in the context of the PKF report, which had fortunately just come to us a few months before the pandemic. And we said, take this PKF report and turn it into a business continuity approach. And we came up with measures that could keep us in business in the midst of the pandemic with no revenue and so on. I mean, we could go on to discuss that if you want to get into more detail, but basically it was about survival. And then now it's about, continuity. And we have done an amazing job in difficult circumstances.
Well, speaking about difficult circumstances, it begs the question: how then that, with all that you have mentioned, that CWI has been able to survive, maintain the ship, and now we, from one tour to another, England, New Zealand, and now you're home hosting, Sri Lanka. So with all
Well,
these challenges, how do you
first of
explain?
all,
Mhm.
first of all, those were all obligations under our Future Tours program with
Right,
ICC.
right,
So, but there was great cooperation in each case. In the case of England, for instance, the English Cricket Board gave us a short-term loan, which was crucial to our cash flow and our ability to meet obligations, especially with players. Players had been in a backlog of payment before our time. And we had been trying to keep the cycle going so that the players could constantly be paid. And then fortunately, we came up with this strategy that we didn't want to lay off anybody. We couldn't, I mean, we had 110 players on the contract. We could easily have gone to the Players Association, the players' representatives, WIPA, and said, look, we just can't meet these obligations anymore under the circumstances because we're not earning any revenue from any international cricket. And can we lay off some players? We could have done the same thing with the staff, but we decided we didn't want to lay off anybody. So we asked everybody to take a 50% pay cut. We got criticized for that by some of these same opponents who are now coming up against us. And we worked our best resources into maintaining the commitment of paying folks at 50%. We were attacked in the media for doing that, but we did not lay off one soul. And it was part of our strategy to cut our costs, obviously. We cut, one of our biggest expense is payroll. I mean, I could tell you between 2000 and 2019, Cricket West Indies spent over $250 million US dollars on payroll. That was more than a third of our income, $700 million. So Cricket West Indies has had a lot of money in our hands, but we haven't always used it well. What this pandemic forced us to do is to understand how to use resources well. Everybody understood that a sacrifice was needed, but everybody also understood that financial management was now a crucial part of our responsibility, and that we couldn't assume, like had been happening before, that we'd constantly have this money coming at us out front that we could spend before we even got it. So the discipline necessary for cost management, for cash management, is what we have now brought to Cricket West Indies.
Okay. And what would you say, Mr. Skerritt, some of the things that you and your administration would have liked to accomplish during your first term that you probably didn't get to accomplish? What are some?
Well, I would think that the issue of exposure for our emerging players, our under 19 players, and our emerging players under 23, under 19, and so on. We wanted to have a program of getting them traveling, playing more cricket internationally, being better prepared for international service as they later on as they get into the senior team. We would have wanted some more women's cricket. We appointed Courtney Walsh as our de facto director of women's cricket, and we beefed up the team that's working on women's cricket, and we've been able to have just one significant camp since, which we just finished in January, but at the end of January. But we wanted the women's team to be touring some more. So far we were only able to do one tour, and that was to England, and that was courtesy of the English Cricket Board, who undertook most of the costs of that tour. The women have not really been able to play much cricket. We wanted to have an under-19 tournament by now. Again, this year, we had one in 2019. We were hoping to have it again in 2020, but all of that, the key tournaments that would normally prepare our young cricketers, we just haven't been able to do it because of either the COVID itself, travel restrictions. Air transport has been a significant problem in the Caribbean, as you know, the loss of Leeward. I mean, people have taken these things lightly, but they affect the ability to move cricketers around and cricket officials, and at reasonable cost. Leeward, we owed Leeward money when Leeward folded. We had just paid them some money not long before, but Leeward has been an excellent partner to Cricket West Indies. We were on the verge of signing a major memorandum of understanding with Leeward, and so it's been very difficult on all fronts. Everywhere we turn, there were challenges, but I'm happy to say that we have been able to create this biosecure bubble in collaboration with the ECB. We are the pioneers in that, you know. You hear it happening all over the world now, but we are the pioneers. We were the first ones to partner with the ECB and prepare what we call a biosecure bubble, which is now the model that is used all over the world. We have used it since in the CPL. We've used it recently, obviously, and we're using it right now.
And talking about the biosecure bubble and the partnership with the ECB, your administration has, been criticized for that partnership with the ECB. Your opponents have been clamoring that you probably would have given up millions of pounds, and in defense, you're saying that strategically it was probably the right and the best decision at the time.
Well, no, yes, but I'm also saying that extortion is illegal. Extortion is corruption. We don't get into extortion. My opponents have come out and said it. Remember, these are board members, so they opposed our tour to England, and they criticized us for not extorting money from the English Cricket Board in order for us to go to England. Well, first of all, that, as I said, is not allowed. I mean, it's against the spirit and the rules of the Future Tours program. The only people who make money out of a tour is the host, other than with your own sponsorship. So us going to England benefited our major sponsor, Sandals. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. England is a major market for Sandals. Sandals is a world-class hospitality organization, and they sponsor us. And wherever we go, we take their brand with us. And so going to England helped to meet our agreement with Sandals to continue promoting their brand, because if we're not promoting their brand, they're not going to pay us. So first and foremost, going to England benefited us financially from our arrangement with our major sponsor. So, I mean, we benefited. Secondly, we got the ECB to allow us to bring a significant number of A-team players. I don't remember the numbers, but I know we had over 30 players in England at one time. I can't tell you the exact number, but it was a lot. This was good exposure for a lot of our young cricketers. That augured well for their preparation and their growth. So even though they didn't play in the official test series, they were playing a lot of cricket. They were practicing a lot of cricket. They were net bowlers. They were standby players, etc., etc. So we benefited. The other benefit is we started negotiating since back then for their next tour to the West Indies, which is scheduled for January 2022, which is less than a year from now. And the goodwill that generated between us has now allowed us to even put on the table and get good traction on expanding that tour. Now, an England tour to the West Indies is always a very good thing for the West Indies financially and economically, because we get more money for the broadcast, which we own, because England has a much bigger and more lucrative cricket market. And countries like Grenada and others who host the England team get economic benefits from the tourism impact. So we have no regrets at all about how we handle the England situation. And I'll tell you, these guys don't seem to understand what extortion is, because maybe it comes that easily to them. But I don't extort money from anybody. I could tell you, if we didn't go to England, there were other teams that were ready to go. You may recall that Pakistan went to England. Australia went to England right after us. I mean, why would you think that we're the only team that can tour England? If a tour doesn't come off, the host country has the right to replace it with another tour if they can.
It was well noted that teams will actually line up to in case the West Indies had declined the offer.
Remember, just to clarify, it's not an offer. It's a schedule. There's a future tours schedule, and we know years in advance what tours we are supposed to make and what tours we are supposed to host. This particular schedule was put in place before my time. Our job is to implement the ICC Future Tours program, and going to England last summer was one of our obligations.
Yeah, and you identify some of the challenges you face in your first term, and now seeking re-election for a second term, Mr. Skerritt. What are the areas and plans for CWI under a Skerritt leadership, Skerritt administration for the next 2 years?
Well, look, we recently published what we call the 10-point Cricket First Plus plan, and six of the items have a derivative from the first plan, and four of the items and from the first plan we feel have been pretty much completed. And if I could just run through quickly the four that we feel were completed. Please. One is bringing back cricket as the center of the organization. Two was the repair of relationships with stakeholders. Remember, Cricket West Indies was in turmoil. We were constantly in some battle mode. Our past president was fighting just about everybody, and it wasn't healthy. We had governments upset. We had we couldn't get sponsors because there was so much uncertainty about a lot of things. It was not a healthy situation that we found in terms of relationships. Well, we fixed most of those relationships and are well on the way to fixing those that may not be 100% at this point. There was a lot of mistrust and doubtfulness about the quality of selection. I'm talking about in the fans, in the public. I'm not bad talking anybody. I'm just saying, that people didn't trust the selection system anymore. They felt it had become very particular country-centric. They felt it was insularity at reign, and so on and so on. West Indians have never, ever totally trusted selectors. We have never believed that selectors were perfect. Every time there's a selection of a team, there's always criticism, but it had gotten to an all-time low. So when we got in office, we set about one of our objectives, which was to review the selection system. We have done that, and we think it is now stable, more trustworthy, but we will review it again. But at this point in time, it is not the highest priority on our list, because we have a policy published for the first time. We have credible and transparent decisions being made with a lot of data input, and we have selectors who understand that they need to explain their decisions to the public. They can't make decisions and hide away from them anymore. And the fourth one, where we felt that we made a lot of progress, was the utilization of regional technical expertise. We brought in our West Indians First policy, which is being adhered to in procurement and recruitment of staff. West Indians are getting first choice, not the only choice. It's not West Indians only, it's West Indians first. And we are getting the best possible West Indians to come and work for us, especially in the area of coaching and administration. Now, the 6 areas that the other 6 areas where we feel we still have work to do includes the coaching education program. That coaching education program, remember, we didn't have a coaching education manager. We hired one. We brought in a highly respected and sought after manager out of Western Australia, a guy called Chris Brabazon, who has now, his name is now a household name in the coaching sector across the region, because he and his people have reached over 400 coaches already just in the outreach in this last year since he's been on the job. We want to expand that tremendously. There's almost what I would call a renaissance in coaching that's going to be taking place. That's already begun and will be taking place. So, I mean, I could go on and on. The review of the professional franchise system is one that we have not been able to do. The professional franchise system, we've been able to beef up the fitness standards and implement the fitness standards, but we haven't really done a proper review of, and that is going to be one of our focuses going forward, even though it was on our list from before. Greater international exposure for our under 19 and our under 23 players. I told you that was one that we just didn't do, but we have to do that. That is a big part of our preparation of players. And the master plan for high performance. That is a crucial one. We now own CCG. We were able to renegotiate the price downwards by $1 million. US, by the way. We don't speak in any currency other than USD at Cricket West Indies. And we were able to complete the purchase. And so we now have to develop the CCG to its natural end, which is a hub for a network of high performance facilities across the region. And we have to fine tune and stabilize our financial relationships with the territorial boards. The territorial boards deserve to get assistance from Cricket West Indies, but it must be done in a way that is sustainable and is good return on investment, and not just handed out money without any accountability. But we believe once we get more financial stability within CWI itself, it's all designed to help to have the resources so that we can pay what is due to the boards, what has been promised to them before my time. These boards have been promised $300,000 each every year just for development. We only just started being able to pay the full amount within the last couple of months since our financial turnaround plan has been unfolding. But we owe them, hundreds of thousands of dollars that were not paid from some time back of that money that is supposed to be giving them money for development. We hope that that can happen on a more sustainable basis going forward. And in terms of new products, I would say we intend to spread the use of science and technology through the organization. We've done it with our athlete management system, getting players networking through their coaches and so on. We've done it with fitness and health, but we need to do it now on all front lines. We're doing it in the financial management systems so that we're automating just about everything. We need to do it with our HR management, and we need to do it with our communications. But we've made progress, but that's an area which we have to take it to best practice level. Fan engagement. Our social media program has been significant, but we need to now engage fans in the form of a fan club and other areas where we can actually earn some revenue. We're already earning revenue through YouTube and some of our productions, but there's a lot more we can do there. So, I mean, I can go on and on. But look, this is not just about plans, okay? This is about trusting the people who bring the plans forward. And we have shown that we can be trusted. We have shown that we are serious and committed to making West Indies cricket move up the ladder. And that is not something that we're going to ever take lightly.
Okay. And earlier this month, Cricket West Indies announced that what they describe as the widest ever access to live broadcast, radio and digital rights for West Indies fans in the Caribbean and around the world for the international home series against Sri Lanka. Mr. Skerritt, how is this fitting into the strategic plan of ensuring that the West Indies brand is relevant?
Well, I'm so glad you raised that, because let's start with radio, for instance. I mean, radio coverage of West Indies cricket had been at its lowest ebb. We had a situation where we had Cricket West Indies actually paying people. We had to pay broadcasters to pull something together for us so that we can get cricket actually on radio. There were some good people. There were some good people who were working out of Barbados and out of Trinidad, people who love cricket and who want to hear cricket and want to produce cricket, but they just couldn't do it on their own. They couldn't raise the cash that they needed from the network of radio stations. So we did what we have done with everything since, and that is we put out an RFP. Our procurement system now is so well put together that nobody, no organization, no company is going to just automatically supply to Cricket West Indies. Only the best will supply to us. And every now and again, we'll have to check to see that they're still the best. And we've done it for the first time with radio. And a radio station out of Dominica, a station that a lot of people didn't know was so committed to sports coverage, Vibes Radio out of Dominica, came along, and in collaboration with associates elsewhere, they said, we think we can achieve this. And they have been doing an amazingly successful job. We are not making a lot of money out of it, but the point is it's not costing us any money. They may not be making a lot of money out of it at the moment as yet, but they're establishing a groundwork, a ground floor, or a platform from which they can grow. They now have about 10 or 11 stations in their network, and these are all independent stations, but they are working together so that Cricket West Indies can be carried across the region. Now, in terms of the television broadcast and the streaming and the other online broadcast services, we have basically gone out as well to tender all over the world in every market. And we are slowly but surely building out a network of broadcasters across the world who want to take our cricket and want to present it to their particular market. And that is why we say we're now being seen, even especially our domestic cricket. The Super 50 this year, as you know, was broadcast on ESPN across North America and across the Caribbean, but also on BT Sport, which is in England and Ireland. And of course, anywhere you have internet TV, you were able to, once you could get those channels, you could see it. So we had more people seeing Super 50 cricket last month than ever in the history of our domestic cricket.
Yeah, and no doubt, over the past 2 or 3 months, just about every few weeks, you're hearing some agreement. Cricket West Indies, whether it's Super Sport, BT Sport, ESPN, Sky Sports, I think in New Zealand. But interestingly, Mr. Skerritt is also the commentators in the region, the opportunity for West Indians to grow their careers, as you say, into the wider cricket industry, including the broadcast media, even among women.
Well, it's funny you say even among women. You know, women is not about even among women, is among men and women, because women's cricket is now cricket. So we have to understand that women's cricket is of crucial part of West Indies cricket. It's not an also run anymore. So we have to try to give the same opportunities to the women that we give, and to the girls that we give to the men and the boys. It won't happen overnight in terms of parity, but this idea of getting a couple of the women's team to try out in broadcast was a brilliant idea that came from in our commercial department and in our broadcast partnership. And when it came to my attention, I was ecstatic about it. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't care where the ideas come from. Once the ideas are good and they're helping West Indies cricket, because we need our past players to have a good career. We don't want our players to graduate into nothingness. We want them to graduate into a successful livelihood for the rest of their lives. We want our legends and our future legends and so on to live comfortable lives. And if we can help, even in a little way, we're not obligated to hire every past player to do anything. But we are hoping that all of our past players will find some way forward in their careers, whether it's broadcast or coaching or some other area. It may not even be in cricket, but we want them to be successful. And if we can provide one option for them in broadcast or some other way, then so much the better. And this is why the experiment with the women in the broadcast came about, because the world wants to hear women's voices alongside men's voices. Women's cricket is one of the fastest growing areas of cricket at the moment. And so more and more women are looking at, listening, and playing cricket than ever before.
Well said. I have some more questions, but if I can just go on to our comments page there. We are here as well. West Indies Cricket 2021 Cricket Group stands for you, Mr. President. That's Codlin Jr. And then Shadi is saying, I'm so grateful for the Facebook live stream, man. It has been so difficult over the years to see live games. I pray it gets easier. Obviously, I guess as much fans enjoying the interaction.
The fan engagement is crucial, because in the final analysis, why do we play cricket? We play cricket because of our love of cricket. We play cricket because it's an opportunity for professional development and for livelihoods. But who feeds that livelihood? It's the fans. If the fans are not looking at cricket, then the broadcasters are not having any revenues out of the advertisers and so on. So it's an industry. But in that industry, the partners that help to produce the talent at the local level, the governments, the local cricket associations and territorial boards, Cricket West Indies involved with standards and resources and helping, that partnership ultimately is to produce a product for the fans. Those fans, remember, the West Indies cricket team is not just loved by West Indians everywhere, as much as we are critical. But West Indies cricket team is loved all over the world. We are known as the second favorite team in other countries of the world. So people in India like West Indies cricket as number 2. People in Australia like West Indies cricket as number 2. People in England like West Indies cricket as number 2. New Zealand, and so on and so on. So the Cricket West Indies brand is in demand worldwide. And we have to make sure that the fans are happy in the way in which they receive the communications with the players and with the team's performance.
Yeah, I recalled some time ago, just after the tour of Bangladesh, that on the similar program, team manager Roy Lewis was saying how much demand for West Indies merchandise, on foreign tours, and it's just an indication of how much the West Indies brand is sought, especially out in Asia.
On the merchandise front, right? We made little or no money at all on previous merchandise arrangements because of all kinds of problems. We did the same thing with merchandise. We did an RFP, and we went through a process of selecting the company that we found was most suitable for our needs and our partnership. And just within the first 3 months of launching the product, the new clothing, we had more purchases online than we had in the previous 5 years. So I mean, let's just say it's working.
Yeah, I love how you said that. Let me go on to one now that I'll have to read because it's quite a bit. Good afternoon. COVID-19 pandemic has decimated economies the world over. That's Robinson Henry. He's actually from St. Lucia, but resides in St. Vincent. Mr. Skerritt, will you seek to implement a program through which a certain percentage of CWI will make shares available to the West Indian public to purchase shares, which will raise millions of dollars for the development of the game in the region? That's a proposal which was first submitted to CWI in 2003 and was sent to the previous president when nothing was done. Yet we are facing cash flow problems to finance, and I think he probably went on to say some other things.
Well, the idea of raising money from the public is a nice idea. A lot easier said than done. Why would a public buy shares in Cricket West Indies? At the moment, it wouldn't be because of return on investment financially, because Cricket West Indies, over a period of time, loses money up until now. We're trying to fix that. We have good years and we have bad years, and we have more bad years than good years. So Cricket West Indies is not a viable investment for a genuine investor. But for somebody who just wants to help and want to donate some money and then never get it back, at the moment, that would be the case. I believe in another 2 or 3 years, Cricket West Indies will be a viable investment. Now, at the moment, we have people, including our opponents, who feel that the present ownership structure of Cricket West Indies, of the territorial boards owning, is all that matters. They don't want any partnership with governments. They don't want any partnership with the media. They don't want any partnership with fans. That's the history. That's their history. So understand that there's a lot of opposition to this idea of opening up and being transparent and getting accountability to the West Indian public. So it takes a mindset, but it also takes a financial plan. And we are bringing a financial plan. We've just purchased CCG, which is a 16-acre of prime real estate in Antigua and Barbuda, including a wonderful cricket facility, which is the base of what it will always be. And we have a partnership with the government of Antigua and Barbuda. And as soon as we can get through this pandemic and we can sit down and spend a little more time brainstorming with the government and so on, we're going to have some exciting plans for CCG. And that could be a real opportunity for investment across the region. But as I said, in principle, nice to do, a little bit more awkward, but let me just tell the person, it's back on the table. It's not, I don't know what happened in 2003. All I could tell is in 2003, I was manager of the team, and we were winning a little bit more then than we have now. We had some world stars, Brian Lara and some others, and we were not doing as well as we had been in the past, but we were still winning, and we still had a little bit of viability. I think Cricket West Indies has been through a lot of changes since, and those changes are continuing. But I think this stabilization, this sustainability is being achieved very soon. Okay.
We have a question here. Curious about President Skerritt's views on recent series victories. Were we lucky are on a growth path? Chenny Joseph, in fact, he is actually the president of the Grenada Football Association and a member of the Caribbean Football Union.
a little bit lucky in one or two drop catches. That's how cricket is. I mean, when Jason Holder was dropped in the first in the first match on the boundary, and I mean that could have been in a close game. That could have been a difference. But are we winning because of luck? No. We are winning because we are playing very good cricket. We are being more thoughtful in our decisions out on the cricket field, and we are showing a lot of teamwork and enthusiasm that seems to have been missing in the recent past. We have good leadership. We have players who are well prepared for playing at home. They just came out of a fairly significant Super 50 period. They've been focusing on cricket quite a bit for the last few months, and the players always play better at home. The home team always has a little bit of an advantage on home conditions. And we're playing against a team that is not that far ahead of us in the performance table. In the T20 series against Sri Lanka, we were ranked at number 10 before we just beat them. We've been ranked at number 10 since 2019. We went from number 3 in T20 cricket to number 10 between 2016 and 2019. So we've been on a bad decline. We just turned that around by beating Sri Lanka. And we have now gone up, as a result of that, to number 8 in the ICC table, right? We just won only the second ODI series, right? Only the second ODI series since 2014. So we're probably going to go up the ladder a little bit as well. In Bangladesh, we did almost the undoable. We beat Bangladesh at home in Test cricket. Not in a 2-match series, we beat both matches. That doesn't happen in Bangladesh in the last 10 years. So all of that cannot be luck. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the players are being better prepared physically and mentally. The players are fitter than they have ever been. All of the players, 110 players across the region, are being forced now to be in better physical shape than they have ever been. And so I think physically and mentally, the players are better prepared. That is now. The question is, can we sustain that? And can we then be so competitive that we can beat teams that are further ahead of us in the table? We will see that over the course of this year, because we are going to play against South Africa. We're going to play against Australia. We're going to play against Pakistan. Those 3 teams are all ahead of us in every one of the format tables. So the real test to see whether we have begun the turnaround or not. Now, I believe we have begun it, but we have a steep slope to climb. Are we going to stay on that slope? We will know over the course of this summer.
And talking about that, over the course of time, Mr. Skerritt, could you recall when last Cricket West Indies, in terms of the West Indies team, had so many players available for selection, that is making it so difficult for even the selectors? I mean, so many players we have now in the region who are vying for selection and vying to be on the first team.
Well, you know, I'm glad you raised that, because I haven't seen it for a while, but I tell you what brought it out was when 12 players made themselves unavailable to Bangladesh. You know, my opponents, my critics said, why is he allowing the tour to take place? If these players don't want to go, it can't be safe. Well, we had verified safety. We had sent a medical team and a security team to Bangladesh. We were confident that the risk was as low in Bangladesh for our players as it had been in England and New Zealand, where we had already toured. Because the bubble that we had helped to create was intact, and we had verified it. So we knew it wasn't going to be a significant risk. However, players had the right. We had said it in our policy, they didn't have to go. But when 12 players couldn't go, in the past to England, I think it was just 2 or 3 players, to New Zealand, just 2 or 3 players. But all of a sudden now it was 12 players. So it was making the news. And my attitude was, but we contract about 110 players. If we contract 110 players and 12 people are not available, why can't we find enough players to go to Bangladesh? And we said to the selectors, only if you tell us that you cannot field a team will we not have this tour. We will not call off this tour until the selectors tell us otherwise. And credit to Roger Harper, Miles Bascom, and Phil Simmons. They said, Mr. President, we have enough players to go on tour. And I said, is the management team ready to go on tour? Phil said, yes, the management team is ready to go on tour. There was one member of the management team who had some underlying conditions and therefore couldn't go. But basically, credit to the selectors, because the selectors are the ones who basically call this tour on, because if they had told us no, the tour would not have taken place. We were satisfied with the protocols and the health risk, but it was the selectors who we left to decide on which players were the best ones to go. And obviously they made mostly good choices, because you see what happened. We didn't do very well in the early ODI games, and then we did brilliantly in the test cricket. But now what it has done is has shown all players, including the 12 who didn't go, that they have to compete heavily for their place. And when you have to compete for your place, you're going to work a little bit harder. And it is working harder that is what was required. One of the things that was required to lift West Indies cricket. So the harder work is taking place. West Indies cricket is being lifted.
Mm-hmm. And back to the questions now. Well, this question is actually from a face that you're very familiar with, a name, Glenys Roberts, your former tourism minister, tourism minister. And she said Basque, she referring to me. I am thinking to ask President how best can stadium be utilized to live out its relevance outside of an international tour. Therefore, we need to find a way to get countries to utilize the stadium more for domestic use.
First of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to hear from Glenys, who was a minister while I was a minister, and we worked on behalf of the Caribbean brand together. But she raises a very important point, because she was in a government that helped to fund a major stadium and so on, and the Grenada government, through successive governments, have faced the issue of running a stadium and keeping it active even when there's no international cricket. It's the big issue across the region. How can we get enough activity to justify what our expenditure on construction and maintenance has been? There's no profitability in stadiums, but they're all national treasures, because even if you have just one or two events that needs a stadium, then it's worth having a stadium. So governments are going to have to budget for a minimum level of maintenance of the stadiums that they own. But they can also do a lot more with the stadiums if they generate their own events. There's some events that are natural, like Carnival, music festivals, and so on. But you can promote sporting events internationally. You can host regional events, but you have to be aggressive. You can't just sit back and wait. We were fairly aggressive in St. Kitts when I was minister. I was Minister of Sports and Tourism, and that helps. Sports and tourism need to work very closely together. But I think there's a lot that can be done with stadiums as long as the stadiums are well kept and well promoted.
Okay. We have some more to get in, and still we have some comments coming in there that I want to get through to. But you spoke about the alliances, especially with the ECB, for example. But even closer to home, we have USA Cricket, which a lot is happening with USA Cricket in terms of development, both male and female. And the question is alliances with USA Cricket and other non-playing cricket nations in the Caribbean. We know of Cuba, for example, with their sports medicine. When we had the St. George's Cricket Academy, the Cubans provided support in terms of fielding, coaches, etc., etc. The Bahamas, Suriname, all part of the Caribbean community. How do we use Cricket West Indies in forging these alliances to ensure that cricket is played not just in the Caribbean but even beyond the Caribbean and even closer? An example like USA Cricket.
You know that in our Super 50, normally, if it wasn't for the COVID restrictions and the attempt to shorten the tournament and so on, we've traditionally had a USA team and a Canadian team participating. That was supposed to happen this year. We ended up having one Canadian player. We have North American development players in our CPL tournament. That is a direct relationship between boards. That continued even last CPL in Trinidad. We have conversations taking place about women's cricket. Right now, the women's director on the Cricket USA board is actively in touch with me about how we can do more with girls cricket, which is an area that needs a lot of work on both fronts, both the USA and in the Caribbean. But more importantly, or not more importantly, but in a bigger sense, we are having conversations about joint hosting of international ICC events. We have already agreed in principle that USA Cricket and Cricket West Indies will put together a bid for a major international event. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we have any traction with that bid, but just be assured that USA Cricket and Cricket West Indies are talking about possible joint hosting of international events in the future. And that could very easily include Canada if it's held at the right time. So our focus is West Indies cricket. We're not in charge of USA or Canada cricket. They are associate members, we are full members. So we are the only full member in the Western Hemisphere. And so in terms of technical assistance and so on, we do our best to help. We do umpires training. We have had one or two legends go to events in places like Bermuda, Bahamas, Cayman Islands, and so on. We would pay part of the cost of that, and the host will pay the rest. So there are ongoing relationships between that go. Some of the relationships predate me, but we have stepped it up, and we will continue to step it up. Obviously, COVID has changed a lot. It's slowed up a lot, and in some cases eliminated some things. But I just want to assure you that those of you, especially North American cricket is a lot bigger than even I understood. There are so many people, mostly people from the Asian heritage, but also a fair amount of people from West Indian heritage in North America who are playing cricket. But we are very keen to do whatever we can to provide jobs for our people and to provide commercial relationships where we can. We already have, ESPN broadcast rights agreement is everything to do with broadcasting of West Indies cricket product into the North American market. So the North American market is already being looked at as an important market for us.
All right. I know we're short of time because you have some other engagement, but there's some comments that are coming in. Congrats on involving some of the older guys and ex-players to be part of the way forward. And that's something I want you to develop on, Mr. Skerritt, the whole issue of the involvement of legends in particular in the development of West Indies cricket.
This is an area where, is an opportunity which has not always been fully utilized. I wish we could have done more. I think as we come out of COVID, and the whole idea is to get former players who are wise about matters to do with cricket, former players who understand and can see indicators that suggest to them what the solutions are, to get them engaged and to get them given advice and counseling, especially to younger players, or to those people who are in charge of helping younger players. We have several past players employed by Cricket West Indies now. Our director of cricket, Jimmy Adams, is a former West Indies captain. Our director of women's cricket, Courtney Walsh, is a former West Indies captain and a legend in his own time. Phil Simmons has played with some of the best legends and is head coach. Floyd Reefer, head of the Under 19 program, is a former West Indies captain and knows a lot of the legends personally. Anne Brown is a bit of a legend in her own way as a former women's player. She's a lead selector for the women's cricket. Roger Harper has played with the best and is a legend in many respects himself as lead selector. I can go on and on.
Let me add Raul Lewis, my Grenadian colleague.
Hey, how could we forget Raul? Raul is a crucial cog in the wheel of management for the West Indies team. He wouldn't like me to say that he's not a legend in the same basket as Sir Curtly Ambrose, but he certainly is legendary, and Raul has done an amazing job. There are many others, but my point is that they don't all have to be full-time employees. We use them in different ways, and I should say, make use of their talents and their expertise and experience in many ways. Some we haven't, some we have, but we need to use them as much as we can. You're going to find that my opponents are going to promise all kinds of great things, and they're going to try to get some past player to endorse them and so on. I have never asked a past player to endorse me. I just give them all the respect and love that I can and give them opportunities when I can. But my respect and love for past players is, I don't have to talk about it. I have put it into practice over many years. When I was manager of the West Indies team, it was the first time that we had preparation camps. And in those preparation camps, we always brought in past players. The two favorite ones for me were Gordon Greenidge and Sir Andy Roberts, bowler, batsman, and bowler coach. Roger Harper was our coach at the time. We have used others, but Clive Lloyd, I flew to England just to make a speech at Clive Lloyd's 75th anniversary. I don't need to boast about my own relationships with the past players. I have always admired them. They're my heroes. Sir Viv Richards gave me great joy as a fan. I've never felt better than sitting in the Antigua Recreation Ground and looking at Viv Richards perform. Look, I'm cricket focused, I'm cricket centric. My opponents say that I'm cricket soft. They accuse me of being too soft on players. Well, I have absolutely no regrets of what I have done and will continue to do with players past, present, and future.
Okay. Back to some Omar Barkos is saying Skerritt took backward system and made it a forward system within 2 years. He needs another 2 to finish his forward thrust.
Can I hire Omar to be chairman of my campaign committee? Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's important to Mr. Skerritt, because the question I wanted to ask you is really whether 2 years is sufficient, to do all that you plan to do.
Look, the Webby report, one of the proposals is for term limits, right? But it does also recommend that the term go to 3 years instead of 2. That was in their meeting with me. They met with several people who gave them, feedback. That was one of the recommendations which I endorsed fully, because I think 3 years is a more realistic term. And especially if you're going to happen to have some setback like the pandemic. So I think a 3-year term would have been most appropriate. I personally, I don't want to serve West Indies cricket longer than I can be useful. I don't think that any one president of West Indies cricket should stay on very long. So the 2-term, 6-year a term limit is to me fine. I don't even know if I would serve for 6 years. It's a very tiring experience. And if you can have continuity, then you should. At the local level, I think it might be a little bit different, because it's not always easy to find the right people at the local level. And if people are doing a good job at the local level and they can get reelected, that's fine. But at the regional level, I really think you need to have changes. You need to have diverse inputs, and you need to have the best people coming from all over the Caribbean. I come from a little island called St. Kitts. St. Kitts hasn't even produced a test player. And I come from a place where, cricket is not the most popular sport in St. Kitts, but we have some of the most ardent fans. Right. And you have ardent fans all over the Caribbean, and you have highly qualified people who can make inputs into cricket.
Yeah. Well, not just fans, as they also say that West Indies is one of the places where you can find the most selectors. Well, the fans.
And sometimes the small islands have a higher proportion of selectors.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, before we go, we lost a stalwart to West Indies cricket recently. I'm speaking of the late Clavis Joseph, and you took time off at least to pay respect to Mr. Joseph, his contribution to cricket in the Leeward Islands, Antigua, the Leeward Islands, and West Indies.
Well, look, one of the things that I like to speak about with Clavis, because you have to judge people based on the difference they made when they were there, not just the fact that they were there. But one of the biggest differences that Clavis made was that Clavis was able to approach his government under the prime ministership at the time of Lester Bird to help to move West Indies cricket from Barbados to Antigua. That was in 1996 is when I think the conversation took place. I don't know exactly when it commenced. I think it commenced somewhere by about 2 years later. But Cricket West Indies moved its headquarters from Barbados to Antigua because Clavis knew that they were getting some difficulty in sustaining concessions from the Barbados government at the time. The Barbados government hadn't quite agreed that Cricket West Indies should be treated as a regional organization. Well, the Antigua government said we would, and Clavis was the man who brought that to the attention of the West Indies Cricket Board, helped to negotiate the terms and conditions, which resulted in Cricket West Indies being headquartered in Antigua and Barbuda at the moment.
And as we get ready to wrap up in your segment, well, I see something just came in there. Let me just see if I can get it to you. So President Skerritt spoke of challenges with air travel in our region. What are his thoughts on engaging other sporting principles to engage governments and owning a regional airline owned by all of the major sporting disciplines in the Caribbean. Wow, that's a tall order, Mr. Skerritt.
I'm not touching that. I'm really sorry. You know, I mean, it's an election campaign, and I should say, oh yes, great, yeah, I think we could do that. But look, that's not what I do.
Mm-hmm.
A regional airline is a headache that Cricket West Indies has a vested interest in as a customer, but you know, we don't do the kind of constant moving of our people across the region to justify having planes sitting on a tarmac just for us. We spend a lot of money on regional air travel, and we can guarantee some kind of a purchase arrangement for air travel. But there's, you know, this is so huge in terms of capital investment and so huge in terms of route planning and so on, because the viable routes may not even be the routes that we want for our cricket. You know, so we tend to charter planes. So we need airlines that have planes that can fly special missions for us. So we have an interest, don't get me wrong. The Cricket West Indies needs to keep an ear to the ground and see how we can throw in our two pence, but not as a serious investor or serious owner, because that is not going to be easy to turn into it. And we don't have the cash to just pour into a hole like a regional airline.
Okay then, and finally, going into Sundays, I'm talking about Sunday, March 28th election. How confident is Skerritt and his team?
Look, I tell people that competition is healthy on the field and off the field. If this election is going to result in betterment for West Indies cricket, if better ideas are going to be put out there, then so much the better. But unfortunately, this election is about who can you trust to stay focused on cricket? Who can you trust to put the resources where they're needed most and not make knee-jerk, short-sighted, personalized decisions about Cricket West Indies resources? This is about delivering what you said you would deliver, and about making sure that West Indies cricket can live on and can keep the people of the Caribbean walking tall. And if you think that my opponents are the right people, so be it. But if you think that what we have done, not what we have said, what we have done shows that we're the right people, then thank you very much for telling the right people to vote for us. Because remember, there are only 12 votes. We believe that we have 8 votes in our support at the moment. But these people who we are against, or people who are against us, say that they are doing whatever they can to get the votes, and they will get the votes at all costs. So who knows? We believe that the people understand that we are best for West Indies cricket, and we're going to continue to do our best. And if we get the mandate to continue, the people of the Caribbean could be sure that West Indies cricket is in good hands.
Okay. And by way of clarification, the 6 territorial boards, and who are the others that make up the 12?
The 6 territorial boards are Jamaica, Leeward Islands, Windward Islands, Trinidad, Barbados, and Guyana. And each board has 2 votes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's how it goes for the 12. Yeah. Okay then. Well, I really want to thank you, Mr. Skerritt, and without any biases, I know on Sunday we have the final. Well, West Indies already winning the series, the one-day series, and then onwards to the test. But what's your prediction, as not just as president of West Indies cricket, but as a fan of West Indies cricket?
You mean the upcoming test series?
Certainly.
Look, our guys, our test players, under a newly appointed captain, coming off a victory in overseas in Bangladesh, they should be ready to perform well. But I tell you, don't write off Bangladesh. Remember, Bangladesh has a very well balanced team. They don't have the power.
Sri Lanka. Eh?
Sri Lanka. Bangladesh was the last series. Sri Lanka, they don't have the power hitters that we have, and that helped to make the difference in the white ball cricket. But they have excellent cricketers, and I think they're going to be much more competitive in the Test series. So you can expect 10 days of excellent cricket, and that's the most important thing. We believe the home team will win, but you know what? West Indians want to see our players working hard, giving up their best, and being proud to carry the West Indies logo on their shirts. And once our players do that, they're going to continue to get the support from the West Indian people.
Okay. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Skerritt, for being part of our program today. Although it's a bit short with you, because I could understand.
I apologize. I didn't realize that you were a full 2 hours, and I had made another booking. I'm sorry.
That's fine. But I appreciate it as much as possible, and I want to wish you good luck come March 28th. And no doubt, I want to support your vision for West Indies cricket. I personally have experienced a turnaround in West Indies cricket, the fortunes of West Indies cricket, after following it for many years. And as I indicated to you, gone are the days of the petty squabbles and the fish market noise, as we call it. And we are seeing real action, even though for some people they believe that it should be, quick timing, But there in the circumstances, there in the challenges, I think you have done quite a bit.
I wish you were a voter, Michael.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to Dwayne Gill.
Thank you. Put in a word for us.
Certainly. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, and good luck. Continue the dialogue. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay then. Yeah. So folks, that's Sir Ricky Skerritt, live from St. Kitts. Yeah. Yeah. Live from St. Kitts. Well, they told me make sure I put St. Kitts and Nevis, right? But no doubt, Mr. Skerritt and Mr. Kishore Shalom, they are vying for re-election as president and vice president, respectively, Cricket West Indies, when the board meets on March 28th, that's Sunday, March 28th, and we will hear more about that. And we want to wish him all the best, and we want to wish West Indies cricket, I should say, all the best. I should be linking up with Vernon Springer, who should be giving us, Vernon is out of, he's actually based in Antigua now, but he's one of the commentators doing ball-by-ball commentary on the ongoing series against West Indies versus Sri Lanka. And he is also a member in terms of cricket development with the Leeward Islands Cricket Board. And Vernon should be joining us. He's not fully ready as yet, but no doubt we have covered quite a bit with Mr. Skerritt, and he has made his case for why he think that his team should be re-elected. As we understood, both Trinidad and Tobago and the Leeward Islands cricket boards, they have fully endorsed Mr. Skerritt, and then he's also had some positive feedback from Jamaica and the Windward Islands. So that's 2 and 2. That's 4 so far. Well, yeah, Jamaica, Guyana. Sorry, not Guyana. I didn't say Guyana. Sorry, Jamaica and the Windward Islands added to Trinidad and Tobago and the Leeward Islands. So it's just been Barbados and Guyana, the two outstanding ones. Well, obviously, they are putting candidates up against, so they most likely will support the opposition. So let's see if we can link up now with Vernon Springer. Vernon is I mean, I don't know whether to say St. Kitts Nevis or whether he's in Antigua this time, but I know Vernon is somewhere in the Leeward Island. Vernon, disclose your location this time.
I'm in Antigua and Barbuda.
Okay, so he's in Antigua, right? Very much so. And you have been listening to the president, Mr. Ricky Skerritt, and some of the comments. And for the next few minutes, I want us to discuss some of what Mr. Skerritt said, and also look at the tour. Wow, interesting series ongoing. And as Mr. Skerritt says, it's just the beginning of things. Hopefully, the West Indies could, well, they already secured clinch the one-day series, but they could at least clinch the test series and then move on to some of the more competitive opponents, namely South Africa, he said Australia, Pakistan, and early in 2022, in January of 2022, England will be in the region. So lots of cricket in store for you folks and for Vernon, especially with commentary, and for the fans. We'll be talking cricket for quite a while post-pandemic. So Vernon, in summary, what you made of the incumbent's desire for another 2 years as president of Cricket West Indies?
First of all, let me thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share on your platform and to talk a little bit about West Indies cricket, which is dear to everyone's heart, even if you're not involved in some way. And for someone like me who, from an administrative point of view and being a media personnel, it's real touching at this point in time. You see me trying to make sure that I hold on to the badge. So it's always important. Some of us sometimes support Liverpool, we support Chelsea, Barcelona, but there's only one thing close to us, which is the badge of West Indies cricket, and that's what we really want to support. I think the cricket first agenda by the Skerritt Shallow administration has to be given real recognition in terms of what is happening. And it came at a point in time during a pandemic. I don't think sometimes a lot of people really understand where during their tenure there was a pandemic. And for anybody to come out of this pandemic and to be able to make sure that you kept cricket alive in the region, well, I think you really deserve, if you're scaling from between 0 to 10, you certainly have to get a 10. First of all, for the Cricket West Indies to make sure that they put their hand up and say, we're going to England. And then to come back and say, we're going to New Zealand. And then to come back, we're going to Bangladesh. And then to come back to the Caribbean and first start with a Cricket West Indies women's camp. Then the Leeward Islands Hurricanes cricket camp. And then in the mix of all of that, to pull 6 territorial board teams to Antigua and Barbuda and execute the CG Insurance 50 Super Tournament behind secure bubble areas without any qualms. The medical staff from Cricket West Indies and the medical staff from the government of Antigua and Barbuda. But let's not take this for granted. Had it not been the vision of Gaston Brown and his administration to be able to sit down with Cricket West Indies and say, listen here, we are going to buy into your vision, which is cricket first, and we want to bring international cricket to the Caribbean. So we're going to put our hands up. We're going to give you all our resources. We're going to give you our support and make sure that this happens. Had that not happened, Michael Bascom, I would have been out of a job. 110 cricketers around the region would not have got paid. We would have been out of a job. So you have to take into consideration that here is a government of Antigua and Barbuda putting up their hand and saying, we're going to support West Indies cricket. Whether you think it was a risk or not, the main idea is that the government of Antigua and Barbuda understood what this meant for employment for not only the cricketers, but for business in Antigua and Barbuda, and for Cricket West Indies to be able to make sure that they were able to negotiate their media rights deals so that there could be some income coming into the West Indies Cricket Board, which is really what they really need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got the sense of the passion to succeed, and sensing that if barring the pandemic, that we may have seen some tangible results in terms of West Indies cricket. Not so much in terms of on the field, because we have seen what had happened, but in terms of the accomplishment of some of the things that they have set out during their 2-year term. But barring that and barring the challenges they faced, I believe that they would have achieved quite a sizable amount, and again, I'm saying, barring the challenges that they face. You are on the ground, especially in Antigua, the mecca of cricket now for in the Caribbean. So you are basically feeling the pulse of West Indies cricket.
Well, let me just also say that I think that West Indies cricket and the Caribbean has lost a national treasure and I call him Sir Clavis Joseph. It was Sir Clavis Joseph's vision years ago as a representative of the Leeward Islands Cricket Association, who envisioned and went to the former Prime Minister, National Hero of Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Bird, and said, listen, I want to bring the West Indies Cricket Board of Control headquarters to Antigua and Barbuda. The government of the day at that point in time, the Bird administration, took a beating because there were a number of folks who were saying, well, they bring the West Indies Cricket Board headquarters to Antigua and releases still coming out of Barbados, and you heard all sorts of stuff. Clavis went on to be a powerhouse in West Indies cricket because both him and the Honorable Pat Rosso, who also passed away, changed the landscape of West Indies cricket in terms of all of this commercial activity we're seeing happening today. It was the first time under administration that players begun to start to earn money and realize about media rights and commercial rights and image rights. They changed the whole landscape because the Honorable Pat Rosso was a businessman. So too was Clavis Joseph. And they combined their contacts to make that transformation and to make that happen. Now, in anything you would know, Michael, that administration is like a relay. You know during the period of time that even when the players went to Paco, there was a major cry out. Folks said, the Jeffrey Stalmeyer administration say, fan them, Mighty Sparrow had to sing a song. You would also know that they had players who went to South Africa for whatever particular reason. Those players were eventually banned. So West Indies cricket has gone through an entire transition period at some point in time, and all that has happened under respective presidents who have changed hands moving along. Under the Dave Cameron administration, there was an implementation of a professional setup system in the Caribbean, which you have to give credit for because it happened under his administration. And like I said, the baton has to be passed. And you have the Cameron Julian Hunt baton that being able to make that Julian Hunt Cameron. Then you have the Cameron Nanton baton that was being passed. And now you have the Skerritt Shadow. We're looking to be able to implement stuff. None of us, Michael, own West Indies cricket. None of us. And so at some point in time, I think some people feel that they own it. It's just that we can agree to disagree. You would hear that the former president, Dave Cameron, said that the administration changed the selection policy. Well, you know why they changed the selection policy, Michael? Because there was a move under the Dave Cameron administration and Emmanuel Nanton that Rakeem Cornwall did not look like a test cricketer and that he shouldn't play for the West Indies team. That was a move that was orchestrated. There was a move where Carlos Brathwaite was the West Indies T20 captain and he was sacked, and Jason Holder took over the realms of all the cricket, ODI, Test, and T20 cricket. So I'm only just giving you some scenarios in terms of the realization of what we have to be able to deal with. So in terms of the selection policy, the selectors are allowed to do their job. I don't think Michael Bascom picks up his phone and calls Miles Bascom and ask him and say, well, why you haven't picked Kevin Hodge? No. You allow the selectors to do the job. They have 3 selectors. The board have selected 3 selectors. Roger Harper, Miles Bascom, Phil Simmons. Right? You maybe might have a thought process. You might maybe call Miles and say, boy, I was looking to the team there and I didn't see Ken White Peters or I didn't see Preston McQueen, whatever. If Miles feels to talk to you on the record or off the record, he shares that with you. But you as an administrator, you can't go and say, I don't want Cornwall, I don't want this person, I don't want Holder, I don't want Dorish, I don't want Sebastian. You don't have that authority. And before, this is, you would say, basically what happened. Because Cornwall, Rakeem Cornwall, was a victim of that. And I'm saying to you, Michael, if the administration didn't change, Cornwall maybe would not have played Test cricket.
So you're basically saying, Vernon, that Cricket West Indies itself had to be more or less had to be cleansed, and and you putting it now to the Skerritt administration that they probably were the savior in terms of cleansing West Indies cricket, albeit there's still a lot of work to be done, both administratively and in terms of performance with the team. I also made it known to President Skerritt that it's probably the first time in a long time that we had so many players available for selection, albeit some of the fans may not be in agreement with the selectors of who they selected. That will always be a case. But for the first time in a long time, we had so many players available for selection on a West Indies cricket team.
But let's go back to the support system that was put in place with the former players. Remember, you had players who were moving around the world and playing in the T20 leagues. And for whatever particular reason, we were the only territorial board that were fighting with our players. We had administrators who were saying, Michael Bascom, you got to come over and play. And if you don't come over and play, then we had a war. We didn't need a war. What we needed to do was put systems in place. You want the players to come and play regional cricket. I know of Marlon Samuels, who was playing for the Leeward Islands Hurricanes. And they were telling Marlon Samuels that you had to play a minimum of 4 games. Now, Michael, Marlon Samuels was not contracted by Cricket West Indies. So he is an independent contractor and he makes his money out of playing around the world in T20, in league cricket, you name it. That's how he makes his money, because he's not contracted by Cricket West Indies. So when it comes to the region,
agent, right?
Right. So when he comes to the Caribbean to play, he's on his own. So he doesn't have a contract. But let's make the point clear so that people understand in terms of what's happening. You still have to be able to be reasonable with players, especially people who have made a huge contribution to West Indies cricket, and that is their living. In 2018, Marlon Samuels came to play for the Leeward Island Hurricane. And before that, he was looking to head out to go to the Pakistan Super League. And you put in pressure on him to play a minimum of 4 games. And we're saying, listen, the guy said he only can play 3 games because he has his contractual obligations. But that is how hard and fast we were on a player like Marlon Samuels. Marlon Samuels broke that and he went to the Pakistan Super League. Because what he was saying to us, Mr. Springer, Leeward Island board, I'm giving up earning 150,000 or whatever. I have a contract for X amount of days and I'm coming to play for the Leeward Island Hurricane for $800. I don't mind doing that. But I have an agent and my agent has obligations. I have to be able to honor my commitment. I don't think our administrators understood that. We just think that you want to play for the West Indies? This is what it be. Hard and fast rule. So nobody wanted to sit down across the table and say, all right, Marlon, no problem. We understand. Your agent says this is what he's signed already. So we'll be flexible with you. You can go ahead. You can come play the 3 games for the Leeward Island Hurricanes and you can go up to your Super League. But once you're being selected, we're going to make yourself available. So if you realize what the Skerritt Shadow administration has done, is that it's just like track and field, Michael. If there's an Olympic year and there's a World Championship year or an Olympic year, the athletes know that they have to come back to Grenada for trials or they have to come and participate in trials. That's the same thing that you implement for cricket. So if you want to play for, let's say, the 50 over team and the West Indies have the CG Super 50 over tournament, then you know that you have to come back home and play some matches because you want to qualify to play for that tournament. How is the team selected for the T20? You got to play in the CPL. So you know, and your performance is judged from playing in India, in the Indian Premier League, in the Big Bash, and you move around there. But you make people comfortable because you understand, we don't have any money to keep people in the Caribbean alone where we could just keep a Pollard or a Bravo or a Johnson Charles or whatever in the Caribbean. So we have to understand that, hey, these guys have to work. There's life after cricket. One of the things which I feel, Michael, that has punished our cricketers in the past and our administrators were hard and fast where I thought that when you listen to some of our modern day administrators, they're jealous of the sums of money that the players are making. And so they have an issue with that. You can't jealous people for going out there and working at their craft. Sport is a $1 billion industry. So why are you jealous of Michael Bascom for signing a contract of 1.2 million in IPL? You have to be happy for the man. What you have to do is continue to produce to make sure that we get more Michael Bascom to go to IPL so that West Indies cricket or wherever territory that he comes from, Grenada, can be able to benefit, but not jealous the players. And I thought that we had it's like a we against the players. No, the players come first, then the administrators. I think we have it wrong in the Caribbean, Michael.
Okay. And just for those who join in and hearing your comment halfway through, when he says Michael Bascom, IPL contract, 1 point something million, that is just reference. I haven't, I don't want anyone to lock my neck. Yeah. But important for that though is the series, the upcoming test series. West Indies versus Sri Lanka, the schedule. Well, we have first of all to complete the one-day series on Sunday with the third and final one-day international, albeit West Indies are already clinched. West Indies, yes, they have already clinched the series, and they're looking to probably a whitewash in terms of the one-day series. And then we have the tests starting on the 21st for the first test, and then the second test on the 29th. And no doubt a lot of the conversation on Friday had to do, Vernon, with the test squad. And you've seen it on the screen there, obviously headed by Craig Brathwaite. And I know when you were last on the program, what was your thinking behind the Craig Brathwaite captaincy? Did you supported him being continuing as captain of the test team?
But I did indicate that to you and said that you had to reward Craig Brathwaite.
Right.
And I was on record saying that. In the meantime, I also want to salute our St. Kitts and Nevis 13 and under cricket program, because we've now produced a test captain. So it's congratulations to Craig Brathwaite, Adrian Donovan, and all of the folks. Ricky Skerritt himself was a former Minister of Sports when we, initiated this program in St. Kitts and Nevis, years ago. But I want to go back before I comment on the test team. I really want to touch on giving you an update in terms of what has been happening on the ground and some of the initiatives that Cricket West Indies has employed. Now, you would hear folks saying that we were lucky to win the T20 series. I don't know if you look in the records and you will see luck. You would see that Kyron Pollard and his team won the T20 series 2-1. Yes, we would have maybe had some challenges during the time because Sri Lanka brought some new spinners onto the fold. I think since that time, the West Indies think tank have got together, and you could see the approach in the 3 ODIs at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium, which is a bigger ground. And Hasaranga, who has been the guy who was tormenting us and got man of the series in the T20, he's yet to get a wicket in the ODI series. So you could see improvement as the time go on. One also have to give credit because this is the first time in maybe about 14, 16 months that the West Indies would have been playing T20 cricket. Barring coming out of a CG Super 50 tournament, there was not a lot of turnaround time to be able to get the preparation going and get their acts together. But so far, they've done a tremendous job. Another initiative which Cricket West Indies initiated was the best of the best, which was the Craig Brathwaite versus the Rushton Chase 11, in terms of a build-up during the same time that the one-day series is taking place. And all this is in a build-up for the test series, which in the selection of the test squad. That 4-day game was a very highly competitive, motivated 4-day game. What the director of cricket did was implement a number of coaches from around the Caribbean. So you had Andrew Coley, you had Nikita Miller, you have Shivnarayan Chandapal, you had Raymond Griffith, you have a number of the West Indian coaches, Floyd Weaver, and they stacked them between the Rushton Chase 11 and the Craig Brathwaite 11. They also had video analysts stacked between the two teams. It was so competitive that it was almost as if it was money was at stake. But I don't want to say physical cash was at stake, but the intensity was real high. And I'll give you my top 3 moments of those games. Preston McSween from the Windward Islands bowled with real pace and swung the ball both ways and is one for the future. Jaden Seals, a young 19-year-old fast bowler from Trinidad and Tobago, real good fine prospect. You hear me on the broadcast talking about Niall Smith from Guyana, another young fast bowler. Immense promise, immense talent, got some real pace. And you saw a different Shema Holder as compared to when he was playing for Barbados Pride in the white ball competition. In fact, he maybe indicated to me that he's really not interested in white ball cricket, because between him and Niall Smith is easily a session that I sat down on commentary and watched 2 young men go head to head as to who is bowling the fastest. Shema Holder from Barbados and Niall Smith from Guyana. That gave me hope, Michael. And I then said on commentary that once Cricket West Indies could just get their high performance up and running at the Coolidge Cricket Ground, we now can be able to formulate and have an Anderson Phillip, a Preston McSween, a Niall Smith, a Shema Holder and company lined up into a factory where the question that you asked Mr. Skerritt about some of the legends, can bring in somebody like Andy Roberts, who understands fast bowling and can teach fast bowling, the tricks of fast bowling, to be a mentor to these young guys. Can be able to begin to be able to say to yourself that, hey, we have a stack of left-handers. So how can we get Brian Charles Lara to be able to come and be a mentor for maybe 2 or 3 of our left-handers? How can we get Shivner and Chandapal to be part of our process to figure out that he takes 2 players and he works with them for the future? These are conversations and these are dialogues that need to happen. It's interesting that you talk, right? And the last time when I spoke to you, I was talking about the 13 and under competition and moving ahead and that sort of stuff. There will be no under 15, under 17 or under 19 tournaments coming up this year because of the pandemic. But I'm going to say this on your program this afternoon. Maybe the time has come, Michael, where we maybe need to revisit having under 15, under 17, and under 19. And this is my suggestion. I think Cricket West Indies now need to be able to have one major competition, one youth major competition, which is the under 17 competition. And I'm going to give you my reason for it so you'll understand in terms of what is happening. The monies that are spent on having under 15, under 17, under 19, you're talking about 3 major tournaments. What you actually need to create now is a nucleus where we identify, let's say, a young Darwin Sammy Jr. at age 12. But we're going to have an under 17 competition. That under 17 competition is going to prepare young players from, say, 11, 12, and this is going to be a competition. So you're going to mask them to play for the Windwards, Leewards, Barbados, or whatever. When you play in the under 17 competition, Michael, out of the under 17 competition, we now begin to pick the best of the best to prepare for the ICC under 19 World Cup. But you would have already had red ball cricket under your belt from 12 years old. And so you maybe can end up playing at least 5 years at that level and preparing you. So even by the time you get to play for the West Indies under 19, that you're set. You're taught all the fundamentals of the game, the rudiments, and you understand what it takes for you to play red ball cricket. Notice I didn't say white ball cricket, red ball cricket. Then what the West Indies would now need to do now is to have an under 23 competition, because we're losing players between 19 and 21. So if we have one competition from under 15, we're under 17. By the time you get to the West Indies under 19, you'll select maybe the best 30 or the best 40, 35 or whatever to select the final 16 to go after the ICC under 19 World Cup. We now have a regional under 23 competition among the territories. At that point in time, you don't have a guy like Jaden Seals who might not be able to get into a Trinidad and Tobago team. He now has an aspiring competition, which is the under 23 competition. So at 19, 18, you might have 5 years playing in that competition. This now becomes the feeder system for the West Indies A team and the Test team, because you now have players who are learning the craft and developing the craft at an early age, from 17, 18, learning it, understanding in terms of what's happening, and they can fit into an A-team system. They're ready to understand what it takes, so that when they get into an A-team, they already know what it's going to be, because after A becomes Test. Because you can get called up from the under-23 competition, but you got to be ready. Most times, our players, by the time they get to the Test call-up, we have to be teaching them about Test cricket. We don't need to teach you. We need to prepare you for that level.
Right. We still haven't gone into the Test team.
Well, the Test team picked itself. I think, in fairness, Michael, you had to reward Craig Brathwaite. You listen to what President. Yeah, what? You had to reward. Yeah, you had to reward Craig Brathwaite. One, because, as you know, the president said, 12 players decided that they didn't want to go to Bangladesh for whatever particular reason. They have their divine right. But you had players who went to England. You had players who went to New Zealand, and you had a massive downturn of 12 players deciding that they weren't going to Bangladesh. After Cricket West Indies would have set up and made sure that they had their medical team, the same medical team that went to England and New Zealand, give approval to go on the tour. And you heard the bold facts where some people thought that they could hold West Indies cricket to ransom. And so their concept was that, hey, we ain't going, that team is going to get trashed. It so happened, Michael, that there was a turnaround, because the players who went to Bangladesh, they saw this as an opportunity to grab with both hands and realize, in fact, you listen to comments from Nkuma Bono. He says he gets paid to bat, get paid to play for the West Indies team. So you understand that. Now, before, Nkuma Bono wouldn't have been even thinking about playing Test cricket, because he would have had the likes of Shamar Brooks and company and all those other guys around, and he maybe didn't see the daylight. He saw an opportunity, and I want to salute Kemar Roach. I want to salute Kemar Roach as one of the senior statesmen, along with Shannon Gabriel, who said, along with Craig Brathwaite, hey, we're going to Bangladesh. I thought Jason Holder made a mistake, Michael, by not going to Bangladesh. The Test team is your team. He should have gone to Bangladesh, and not going to Bangladesh gave a new inspiration to Craig Brathwaite. And let me make this point on your program, Michael. We saw the jubilation of the team in the 2 Test matches. We saw the energy. We saw the comradeship in terms of how Brathwaite was able to formulate the team and his bowling changes and the inspiration and the fight. We heard the comments also from the head coach, Phil Simmons, and his backroom staff. So let's tick the boxes. If Craig Brathwaite's leadership was so inspirational on his own, we have to give him a 10 out of a 10. If the backroom staff led by Phil Simmons and Roddy Eswick and company outlined a plan to Craig Brathwaite and he implemented, we also have to give that backroom staff 10 out of 10. So, the Test team, we saw what happened in Bangladesh. There was talk about, hopefully John Campbell maybe might have been struggling and they would need it to replace an opening batsman. I think he redeemed himself in the best of the best game, scored 129 and 55. So by that, I think you really couldn't leave him out. But I think this is his last chance, because if he doesn't get any runs in this series against Sri Lanka, I think the West Indies could be looking for an opening batsman. We shot Shane Mosley, who batted at number 3 and really looked out the sorts. And he wasn't comfortable in that position and came in the best of the best game and never got off either. So you have to find a number 3 batsman. So I think when you look at the rest of the Test squad, it has picked himself. I also want to use this program to say to you that is the first time that I would have seen Kevin Hodge in 2 years. I'm impressed. Very, very, very impressed. Technically sound player. And I think the West Indies has got a middle order batsman. I just hope that things can come back to normal, where we can have some A-team cricket, so that people like Kevin Hodge and Preston McSween and so can get an opportunity to be able to play some more A-team cricket, so that by the time they get their Test call up, they're ready. But what I saw from Kevin Hodge in the little short stay in the 4-day game, I was very, very, very much impressed with his technique, and he looks a very organized batsman.
Okay, let me get some comments here. Robertson Henry said, Mr. Springer, greetings to you. Much of the problem faced start from the local levels with the quality of training our players receive in the formative years. A number of our coaches, though in possession of a coaching certificate, have failed to iron out the technical deficiencies in our fast bowlers. What are your thoughts on this major developmental problem?
Well, I said this to you already, Michael Bascom, where I said to you that Cricket West Indies have brought on a coaching education manager in Chris Brabazon, and I think they're going to be doing an inventory and overall assessment of the franchise's coaches. And I always keep saying, Andy Roberts and Brian Lara don't need any coaching certificate or Sir Garfield Sobers. They don't need no coaching certificate to come and tell you some of the things that you're doing. A lot of us have coaching certificates, but a lot of us don't understand the technical aspects, and we don't know how to be able to move players to the next level. And that is, Robinson is right. When you look at the youth level, and you look at the comparison in terms of what is happening with our coaches are not advancing their own skills. They're coaching the same way how they coached 20 years ago. I could tell you what the practice is going to be like for some of these franchises. They practice from 9 to 12. Done. Finish. That's it. When was the last time some of our franchise batsmen bat for an entire day? These are questions. We don't have the time today, Michael, but I'm saying to you, these are the things that we're talking about. We can't prepare people for test cricket if they're just batting for 20 minutes in a net session. We can't, and everybody don't need to bat in a net session every day. We can't prepare young people if we are not teaching them how to sweep, if we're not teaching them how to switch it. The game has changed. A young player in Australia or in England is taught by a modern-day coach how to switch it, how to sweep. We have players who are playing in our competition, Michael, who can't sweep, don't know how they can get a run. And these are just fundamental things. We have technical deficiencies with our young fast bowlers, and some of the coaches don't know the know-how as to how they could be able to change some of the stuff. Whether you're supposed to jump, whether you're supposed to run to your crease, whether you're supposed to complete your action, they don't have any way. We also have coaches around who are afraid to use the technology, don't know to use the technology which is available to them. We have coaches around who have video analysts that are available to them and don't allow the video analysts to do their work. So those things are going to change, Michael, over the next couple of years, over the next couple of months. Have to change if we want to be able to compete with the world.
Okay. We have some more comments there. Trying to get as much as possible before the time. Lincoln Deputy is saying, you make much sense, Bonan. Lots of cricket, lots of football do not necessarily mean they will produce quality cricket. This also cuts down on the expense on running many tournaments in a region and in countries where economies are not expanding fast enough to meet growing needs, and cash is always in short supply. Lyndon James is, what are your thoughts of Shai Hope being included in West Indies Test squad?
Well, the Shai Hope situation in the Test squad, I think after this series, we could begin to have a conversation concerning that. And I also feel that the time has come where maybe if Shai Hope comes back into the West Indies squad, that he should be opening. Because when you look at his one-day form, I could never understood why he was never opening for the West Indies at the Test level. But that's another discussion that will come forward. Moving along, I think there was a former minister from Grenada who asked Mr. Skerritt about stadiums and how we could begin to think seriously about having other activities to be able, that the 2007 World Cup that came to the Caribbean, Michael, the organizers of the ICC Cricket World Cup that came to the Caribbean, they raked the Caribbean governments. They promised so much and delivered nothing. And they got the governments to build these massive stadiums in Grenada, in Antigua, you name it. And at no point in time, maybe even in our lifetime, Michael, unless we have a England tour, that we can be able to fill those stadiums with the capacity in terms of what they have. And so it is becoming increasingly challenging for the governments even to maintain some of those stadiums. I remember when the government of St. Kitts and Nevis built the small stadium in St. Kitts at Warner Park. Even though I felt that, a couple of changes could have been made on the dressing room in that area there were people who were saying, well, why they just didn't take up a new space of land and build something completely different? They would have maybe ended up with where activities like Grenada and St. Lucia and those places who built these huge stadiums, and then there's no return on it. Saying that, I think as a region, we all need to come together and need to come together fast, especially after the pandemic. And I'm not just talking about cricket, I'm talking about sports in general, Michael, because if we don't look to, one, implement back the OECS sports desk, I think we're going to find ourselves in a problem where our youth, in terms of playing competitive sports, is going to suffer. Our boys and girls are going to suffer if we don't try and set back up a serious OECS sports desk to be able to start generating the interest of sports again in the region. And with the pandemic, a lot of small associations are going to struggle. Governments are also going to cut their sports budget. I don't think they should, because you still need a healthy nation, regardless of whatever happening. What we need to do is to devise a plan to the region, and especially OECS. The OECS need to take the lead. How do we take the lead? I think we need to devise a plan to sit down with the Caribbean National Olympic Committee's executive. They have some funding and begin to be able to formulate some plans along with some of the other associations that can be able to help. Maybe even some of the associations who are running youth development football, that some of that funds maybe be channeled through the OECS sports desk to have school sports being played. We'd have the Girls Sagafi Sobers competition in Barbados. Maybe Grenada can maybe organize a netball competition. They can maybe have you can have the best of the best, the top Windward Island team playing against the Leeward Island team in schools, netball or in cricket, or maybe schools would be a way to go. Plus, we also have Sportsmax now who are covering football in Trinidad, in Jamaica. If we devise schools football in the OECS or school sports in the OECS, that could be a revenue stream for the OECS sports desk to Sportsmax. I'm just talking, Michael, off the top of my head by giving you some ideas.
All right. Well, talking about ideas, this Glennis Roberts, she sent a comment saying that your second guest, while referring to you, Ronan, making some real great observations, commend him for me. You have a cricket partner. More comments here. Roberts saying, Toro, you are the antagonist. Well, believe it or not, West Indies will beat Zimbabwe. Unfortunately, Vonham is talking to himself and not the reality of the sports in the Caribbean. The game needs to be resurrected at the grassroots level, and we are ignoring that fundamental aspect. And then Toro is saying, more than technical, West Indies players lacking the mental aptitude to compete consistently with the best of the world. West Indies remain the only professional output to pick players from local leagues and from there send them straight to international competitions. The top Olympic countries, the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball and hockey, they all select the majority of their talent through the college and university system. Vonham, a brief comment, and then also on the Karen Pollard incident also, as we get ready to wrap up.
Well, when it comes to the fundamentals of sports in the Caribbean, I think all of us have a responsibility. And you have a number of Ministry of Sports in the Caribbean islands. They hire coaches. So are you going to blame West Indies cricket for the coaches who are hired down at the grassroots level who are not doing anything? Because they have coaches in Ministry of Sports who are being paid by government and by the same person who wrote the comment to go out into schools and coach. It means that nobody is being held accountable. So we need to be able to start to hold those folks accountable. In terms of the Karen Pollard issue, in the heat of the moment, Michael, you played sports, you understand in terms of what's happening. He later started to apologize to the captain, Karen Hackney, for the incident. But in the heat of the moment, when you want to make things happen, these things happen. The umpire, he appealed, and in the umpire's opinion, he felt it was obstruction. It's not the first time that somebody has been given out obstruction. That will be a talking point for a long time to go. But in the spirit of the game, the spirit between Sri Lanka and the West Indies has been of a high level. A lot of respect for both teams and the officials. They've done a great job.
Okay. And the I want to thank you, Vernon, as usual. And as Glenn says, Michael, you have a cricket partner, but as we indicated, it has gone way back then. But finally, Vernon, cricket commentary, okay? And I think Mr. Skerritt touched briefly on it. Partnership with Vice FM of Dominica, and all the sorts that have been happening, and the opportunity, like even yourself, being able to do cricket commentary. What the experience has been like for you, Vernon, doing commentary on a regional international level, because from the Super 50 Cup and now the series against Sri Lanka.
First of all, the Commonwealth of Dominica, Vibes FM management and staff of the radio station there has to be commendable, the owners, for their excellent job in terms of being able to first acquire the rights. Some praise also have to go to Andrew Mason, who behind the scenes is easily one of the producers, and the management of ABS Radio in Antigua and Barbuda, Garfield, Burford, and the management team, the technical staff, to be able to pull off this here. The collaboration has been tremendous to the point that you've seen a record 11 radio stations. I don't know if you've followed, but there's been a hot topic in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of Vinod Manchan's radio station acquiring the rights also for radio broadcasts, and that has been a talking point in Trinidad and Tobago. So it's ignited some conversation in Grenada, in St. Lucia, in Jamaica, Barbados. So radio commentary to a point is really coming around, and as you heard the president say, they're not really making any money from it. I don't think that the folks in Dominica are making any money, but I think that they can be able to only get better. You've seen two ladies, one on the television and one on the radio, get on stream. You've also seen a debut for Mally Richards, the son of national hero Antigua and Barbados, so Vivian Isaac Alexander Richards, making his debut on the broadcast. Anthony Martin, another former player from Antigua and Barbuda, played for the West Indies in one-day competition. So you see an emerging of stars coming through with some of the probables that you would have had there before, the Denmore Roberts, the Colin James, and company, Vincey Boyne, Terry Larajo. It's all coming into bearing in mind. West Indies, outside of cricket West Indies, they're planning a pathway for professionals after. You're seeing Courtney Walsh, Sir Curtly Ambrose, Ian Bishop, Samuel Badre, and Darren Gango, looking to be able to make sure now that players can understand now that there's a pathway for broadcasting. And with the amount of cricket coming to the Caribbean over the next summer, you heard the president talking about, South Africa, Australia, and Pakistan coming to the Caribbean. It's going to be more development stages. And I only can see it just going from strength to strength, because Cricket West Indies is also developing its own media platform where they can be able to produce West Indies cricket, local cricket, support whatever is happening in the islands around. So it can only just go from strength to strength, where you'll be able to have more regional commentators from around the region being part of the staff as they look to be able to build a brand, which is West Indies cricket.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Vernon. Thank you. I want to appreciate your insight as usual, on point and well articulated. And I want to congratulate you also on your I don't want to say debut, but your commentary, and I want to thank all those who have been part of that, and I enjoyed the aspect of it being truly West Indian, and it also brings to fore that we now have a cadre of commentators, and analysts, cricket analysts, who are providing, and what I want to see from that is probably when we start, traveling, our commentators start traveling with the West Indies team, as it used to be probably when the late Tony Cozier and when Retspur and others used to travel with the West Indies team, whether it's to Australia.
Give me 30 seconds quick, because this journey for me would have started way back with Joseph Retspur coming to St. Kitts and Nevis and organizing a commentators workshop while he was OECS sports coordinator.
Like many years ago.
So you understand that what you're seeing happening here is just mixing a balance between being a sports administrator and still being able to be a journalist and still carry out that. And I always remember Reds at that point in time saying to me, you got to learn all the sports. You got to learn to commentate boxing, netball,
Yeah.
basketball. That was always Reds major. So you find that you practice at events that you never even expected to turn up to. I mean,
Yeah.
at one point in time, I remember I was a commentator for swimming. How did I become a commentator for swimming? I remember Joseph Redfield say, you have to go and do that sometimes. So, and that's the thing about growing. I wish now that, I know Reds, even though he's cooling down there, he still has a huge contribution still to make. And I hope that at some point in time, there's still some fundamentals which some of us still really need to go. And some of the folks who are coming around, he still has the know-how. So I think that maybe he can write a paper and we can be able to articulate it where we can get a presenter to be able to come forward and highlight some of the stuff that still need to be done in broadcasting, especially with radio commentary. But outside of that, I wanted to salute Reds because he's the one who really gave me the insight and always pushed me to tell me, you got to be able to make sure you just don't stick to one sport. As an administrator, you got to get involved in all sports. And as broadcasting, you got to know all the sports so you can be able to talk. When you talk, you can talk with some authority.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much, Vernon.
Hey, God bless you, man. And you have a good day. Thanks again, my buddy.
Okay, then, right. So that's it. Vernon Springer, live from St. John's in Antigua, where he is covering the West Indies versus Sri Lanka series, providing the ball-by-ball commentary, part of the commentary team. And Vernon, no doubt, is one who has been involved in sports, I should say, not just cricket, has been involved in sports, especially in the OECS, for many, many years. We go back, way back since, I think, 2006, 2007. Even before that, we attended many courses together. We were in Brazil for the 2007 Pan American Games and throughout the region, covering football, covering track and field, albeit mainly the Curve the Games, years upon years. And Vernon has been a sports administrator himself. He's now retired sports administrator with the St. Kitts and Nevis government. Yeah. Thank you very much. And I want to thank folks for being part of our program today. Early on, we had the president of Cricket West Indies, Mr. Ricky Skerritt, and then Vernon came on to give a wrap on the program. And thank you all those who provided their comments, as usual, Toro Depredine and Ray Roberts. I want to thank you as well. Rudy and Sylvan, as usual, and Chenny Joseph, Glennis Roberts, and others who provided comments and questions to Mr. Ricky Skerritt, and all those who also provided some questions. I want to thank you very much, and invitation is yours to join us again on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. because from tomorrow morning we spring here in New York, we spring forward, so it means that we'll be same time as Eastern Caribbean. So I just say 6:30 p.m. will be our starting time for our program on Thursday, which is TalkSports, and then next Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for our Saturday Sports Special. Until then, I want you to take care and thank you for being part of our program.